And I'd like to call our meeting time to order if I could. We will reconvene at this point, and thank you for that. Um, we're going to start with elections. So, so we're going to start with elections. First thing, I declare this meeting open. Secondly, just need to, because of timing, obviously trying to do a bi-regional meeting and so on, we were trying to standardize the times when nominations would close and when business pieces would come to us and so on. So that's why the times don't necessarily align with our meeting time. So it just for ease of staff trying to wade through emails and so on. So that's why the difference in time. So I apologize for maybe not addressing it completely yesterday when we were meeting as well. So I'm going to ask the nominations be closed, or I declare that nominations are closed at this point. And at this time, I'd like to have a poll opened in a moment, maybe, for election of our president. Greg Simpson has put his name forward for that position as president-elect. Sorry. Yes, I get you. You're stuck with me for another year. And that poll is going to be open. Sure. Yes, we can open that poll online, and we'll give 30 seconds or so for that. And for those of you here in person, if you would like to show your support by voting yay or nay, we'll start with the yays. If you are in favor of Greg Simpson as your next president, thank you. And those opposed, thank you. we have unanimity. So congratulations, Greg Simpson, who's enjoying a coffee back there after the morning. Thank you, Greg. Did you want to say anything, or are you good? Okay, fair enough. We will keep going. You'll have lots to say later. So now at this point, we will show the slate of those who have put their name forward for our commissions and executive. And again, thank you to John and Pat for all the things that they're doing. So what is the issue? The regional council can best fulfill its decision-making responsibilities if it has a full slate of diverse members in decision-making roles. Again, you were encouraged to put your name forward. If you did not put your name forward, but the spirit moves you or the wind pushes you in that direction, feel free to put in an expression of interest form. We can still get you involved, but you wouldn't be confirmed until the next time that we meet as the spring meeting. So what might the regional council do? The regional council might agree to accept the slate discerned by the recruitment team, and I'll thank Cheryl for that. And Cheryl, did you want to speak as well? Okay. As presented on the floor of the Court of Antler River Watershed's Regional Council spring meeting from June 26th to the 28th today of 2026. And I'll invite Cheryl to make her way to the front here so she can share her thoughts. And that Antler River Watershed Regional Council approved the slate prepared by the Volunteer Recruitment Committee as presented. And I'll ask Cheryl just to speak to that.
I'm going to move over here because John's taller than me. No, most people are, so it doesn't really matter. So I am Cheryl Bolton, past president, but I'm also the chair of the recruitment team. And we managed to double the size of the recruitment team from 2 of us to 4 of us. So my committee is Marianne Silverthorne. I'm kind of scared too, because I'm thinking you won't. Yeah, she's hiding down there. And we have Lori O'Leary and John. Where's John? Oh, there's John. John Brown. Everybody knows John Brown. Now, those are your 4. Just because you see their name come up on your telephone, please do not ignore their phone calls. I'm hesitant at giving you that idea. So I, first of all, as our president mentioned, that oh we do we will still accept your expressions of interest at all times. We really do need your help, even if it's not on a commission itself. There are many committees within those commissions that need your help as well. So please send out the expression of interest forms. They are on the website. Bearing that, if you can't figure the technology out, give me a call and I will walk you through it, the process. We want your help and we need your help. And I look forward to the day that we have to have an election because all the positions are full. Wouldn't that be wonderful? First of all, and I want to say thank you to all of those who are going off of commissions. They have been extending and extending. They've filled their 2 terms and some of them more than 2 terms. And we really, really do appreciate all the hard work that they have done. But we also want to thank those who have volunteered to fill those positions. We're not full, but we've got enough to function, barely enough to function as commissions. There are lots more positions available on the commissions and committees, so help where you can. Discern about it, but think about it. Where are you, God calling you? Now, before we introduce the new slate, I have one more piece of business. In our opening motions, and you may not have caught it, we accepted the work of the executive, and we do, as the executive, appreciate your confidence in our work. But there's one thing that we did this year that was kind of one of those bittersweet things that we had to do. We welcomed Linda Britton to the executive as our new treasurer. Hold it together, Cheryl. You can do this. And it's wonderful having Linda there. She actually has many different hats that she wears amongst the region here. So it's great having Linda on there. But the reason we had to ask Linda to join us was because we had to say goodbye to Doug Cameron as he stepped down from his position as treasurer. So anybody want to render a guess how many years? I wanted to catch up with Tanya today to see if she knew how many years her dad has served as treasurer, because he's been with the region since day one, but he was part of London Conference treasurer before that. So I would guess at least 10 years that he's probably been around. Probably way more than that. I don't know how many years, but anyways, yes. Oh, yeah, I figured it was probably more than 10 years. And Doug, if you are watching online, I don't know whether he is or not, we just want to say, as a region, please join me in thanking Doug for all of his years of faithful service. And now, because I'm not president anymore, I'm going to hand the mic back and I'm going to go sit down. Thank you very much. And please do keep your expressions of interest coming in.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. And again, the recruitment committee is one that was sort of established in the last couple of years formally, because we were trying to do it ad hoc previously. And it's great to have somebody who's heading that up and actively going out and searching for folks. But again, if you can help with the search by just volunteering your time. And thank you so much for those of you that are here today. This is our slate as it's put forward. So we have executive, we have members at large, Linda Badke and Louise Hall. So they are currently serving, but they would return. Louise is leaving pastoral relations. Thank you. And Linda Badke is leaving the Discipleship and Justice Commission. but they are willing to put their names forward to sit on executive. And they've been serving executive as members from those commissions. So those two folks. And then we have congregational support. We have Cheryl Bolton, Jackie Morrell, Herb de Jong, Rob Apgar-Taylor, and Carrie Wagner. We'll get it to you, Louise. Yes, sorry. And thanks to Louise. She's doing the minutes for today too. So my apologies. We're not trying to add to your angst or your anxiousness. Jim Sterling for a second term on congregational support as well. And then we have for discipleship and justice, we have Ann Morrissey, a former secretary of mine at Myrtle Street Public School, David Nopert, Lillian Rowe, Lillian Patey, and Tabitha Carey, extending her term for 1 year, and then James Hott, extending term by 1 year, and Jim Hyatt for a second term as well for discipleship and justice. Then on pastoral relations, we have Richard Golden and Barbara Ridgewell. And that is the slate. So the process now is I need somebody to make a motion to move that slate. Cheryl, I'm assuming. I need a seconder. Sure. Carrie Stover. And the way that this works is either that slate is approved in totality, or if it's turned down, then we have to go back through, the whole slate is turned down and we have to go back and review it. So everybody understand? Okay, so I'm going to ask a poll to be put out there, voting on the slate, yay or nay. And similarly in the room, if I could see a show of hands, those who have been in favor of accepting the slate as presented. And thank you for all the work that that committee did. Too many names. Thank you. And those opposed. And we are good online as well. So that is carried. That motion is carried. Thank you so much. And we appreciate all the work that you're offering to do. And at this point, I would like to call Marianne Silverthorne forward, and we are going to recognize our LLWLs.
Good morning. I checked and it is still morning, so we're good. Before I do the formal part of this meeting, I want to welcome 4 people that have joined in our midst that may be new to you unless you know them. Is this okay? I have a loud enough voice that doesn't matter. I'm well aware of that. Thank you. I would just like to name the people who are on the resource team, and we are actually a subcommittee of the Antler River Watershed Human Resources Pastoral Relations Commission. Say that quickly 3 times. Not possible. But we are a subcommittee, and we're the licensed lay worship resource team. And we're there by positions. So our guidelines clearly indicate that we comprise 1 clergy, 3 licensed lay worship leaders, and 2 lay. I am there as a lay person. So our committee is Norm McPherson, Ian Phillips, Lillian Rowe, myself, Pam Wilcox, who, for those of you who don't know that might have joined today, Pam has had a death in her family and has been absent all weekend. We send her our sympathies. Excuse me. And Tracy Weininger is a licensed lay worship leader. That's the committee. There are 6 of us, but we do powerful work. At least we take credit for powerful work because we do a day away workshop for our licensed lay worship leaders, 1 day away, and we get I'm just going to tell, like we're told, this has been an excellent day, is what we hear at the end. It just tells us all kinds of things. So while we're here, this is to recognize 4 people. And you're going to say, well, why just 4? These are 4 people that after I read the introduction, you will understand better why we're recognizing them specially today. During this whole weekend, we have heard comments like we are connecting, we are always connecting to do things. We are like the potter, molding people and expanding our relationships, expanding our church, and working all for the same common goal. Today, we have these 4 new people, and so I will start by giving you an introduction to the LLWL. This is a program that I tell them this service takes probably 5 minutes. Well, it's a little longer, but you know. And like the good students, they all showed up this morning on the time they were told to be here, and we're good. So throughout the history of our denomination, the ministry of the lay people has been an essential part of the life of our communities of faith, helping people to celebrate God's presence through worship. The desire to learn and grow in these skills led to what is now the Licensed Lay Worship Leader Program, commonly known as LLWL. Licensed lay worship leaders have completed a series of courses been interviewed by the Licensed Lay Worship Leader Resource Team and been recommended for licensing at the Pastoral Relations Human Commission, and they're getting their last formal recognition by you, the top governing body, Antler River Watershed Regional Council. Licensed lay worship leaders lead worship from communities of faith whose ministers are away on vacation and other types of leaves while the church is searching for a new minister and while various communities of faith who are lay-led. Licensed lay worship leaders have agreed to be accountable to the regional council and abide by the licensed lay worship leader policy and are supported by the Licensed Lay Worship Leader Resource Team. This appears to have an echo.
You're good.
Okay, thank you. Presently, it's my honor to introduce the following newly recognized licensed lay worship leaders. They know that they are to come up here and stand, and I told them everything is kind of like in alphabetical order. Yeah, and they will come by alphabetical order. See, they've already figured this out. The teacher went back and gave them the rules. And assisting in this formal part of the service will be 2 other people, leaders of this region, and that will be President Richard, who you've already seen, and the chair of the Antler River Watershed Human Resources Pastoral Relations Commission, Carrie Stover. So it's my pleasure to introduce the new people who are Mary Ellen Baruth, a member of Ruth Haven Pastoral Charge. All I know is that's near Windsor. Lisa Conley, a member of the Peace United Church in Plattsville. James O'Dreary, member of Trinity United Church, London. And Leanne Steinthorson, member of Trinity United Church, Ingersoll.
As we come to recognize these people for their licensed lay worship leadership designation, I ask you to join with me in the responsive call to worship. We are each given particular gifts of the Spirit for the sake of the world. Followers of Jesus to Christian ministry. In the church, some are called to specific ministries of leadership, both lay and ordered. Some witness to the good news, some uphold the art of worship. Some comfort the grieving and guide the wandering. Some build up the community of wisdom. Some stand with the oppressed and work for justice to embody in the world. Work of the church requires the ministry of all believers. And we join with me in the opening prayer as it's displayed as well. Gracious God, by your Spirit, you lead us in the sharing of gifts.
You draw us together in community. You inspire us through worship, and you lead us out in faith and hope. Bless us as we recognize our new licensed lay worship leaders, that we may also walk the way and care for one another. Amen.
Friends in Christ, all the baptized are called to Christ's ministry, both within the church and beyond it. Mary Ellen Baruth, Lisa Connolly, James O'Deary, and Leanne Steinthorsen have felt a calling to serve Antler River Watershed Regional Council as licensed lay worship leaders. They have completed the educational requirements, and their gifts have been affirmed by the licensed lay worship leader resource team and the pastoral relations commissions. Mary, Lisa, James, and Leanne, I ask you, will you exercise your ministry in accordance with the scriptures and in continuity with the faith of the church? If you could respond, we will. And will you, with Christ's people, be faithful in prayer and in the study of scripture, that you may know the mind of Christ? And if so, please answer, we will. And will you diligently perform the duties of your position within the polity of Antler River Watershed Regional Council and the United Church of Canada? And if so, please answer, we will. And those of you with the Regional Council, if you're able to, please stand. I ask you, the members of Antler River Watershed Regional Council, will you support and encourage the licensed lay worship leaders with your prayer and work? And if so, please answer, we will. You may be seated. By the grace of God and the will of the Antler River Watershed Regional Council, we recognize Mary Ellen Baruth, Lisa Connolly, James O'Deary, and Leanne Steinthorsen as licensed lay worship leaders within our regional council.
At this time, they will be presented with a tippet. I think this requires an explanation because when I asked President Richard, he told him that he was going to be taking part. I said, do you know what a tippet is? No, but I looked it up online. So a tippet, thanks to Ovid Kitchen, who chaired this committee a number of years ago, when we were going to license people as a region. Previously, these people were licensed by presbytery. When we were going to license them as a region, Ovid said, we need something to distinguish these people when they do their visiting and preaching. And he knew from another faith that they had something that was called a tippet, which is a preaching scarf. We decided we needed to do this, being the licensed lay worship team. And therefore, as a result, we did. But we needed to figure out, A, how you would do this, what color it would be. All of those conditions were met. And we had two people who were members of this regional council who actually, you know both of them well, Pam Wilcox and Carlene Kimber, who meet regularly for sewing meetings. And they put together at that time 50 tippets. So we will, the president and I will present the tippets to them. And sorry, we have to do this in alphabetical order because they already have other things in the bag, so they're named. So Mary Ellen?
Sure, yeah, that works. Hey, excellent. Who are we?
No, we don't know our names. Oh, and I should tell you, these were made one size fits all. So they come in short, long, and extra long. And what I've told them every year is if you get the extra long one, feel free to remodel it or whatever. That's okay. Thank you so much.
If you want to stand.
See, I got the extra long.
As soon as they finish giving it the weekend.
Thank you, sir.
Let us pray. Gracious God, whose Spirit has ever blessed this church with varieties of gifts for the work of ministry, we thank you that you have blessed us with gifts that enrich our life together and strengthen our witness and service in the world. By your Spirit, bless the licensed lay worship leaders here who serve in our regional council. Guide them and work through them that they may support our communities of faith and work with passion and faith. Amen.
And again, congratulations. And so great to see you.
So nice to meet you in person.
Probably not. Thank you. And thank you, President Richard and Carrie.
Excellent. Thank you. At this time, we will call our moderator, the very Reverend Dr. Kimberly Heath, to the right Reverend, sorry. Barry is after, sorry. Anyway, as I say, Greg will do better. Anyway, thank you so much, Kimberly, again for being here and sharing. And wherever you'd like to speak from. It's good.
Big space.
And we'll maybe just give a moment for our LLWLs to celebrate momentarily.
Well, and I feel I have to like apologize to your LLWLs because yesterday during the celebration of ministry service, I named the 4 LLWLs that were what's the word for what we just did, covenanted with, or but I didn't realize that they were just the Horseshoe Falls LLWLs. So God bless and thank you to Mary Ellen, Lisa, James, and Leanne. And I'm learning so much while I'm here. A tippet? I didn't know what that was. I didn't know what was that word last night, or word of the day? Perspicuity. Something between persnickety and promiscuity. I don't know, but it's a new one for me. Am I the only one? It's a great word. So I think this is a Q&A. I have, so if anybody's got any questions for the moderator, I think that's what this time is about. We can also just talk amongst ourselves. I can try to think of questions for you.
What is the most enjoyable part?
So Richard asked, what's been the most enjoyable? There's a mic, or that's not a roving mic, is it?
It can rove about 3
Feet. So I might hear you, but I'll repeat it for the, Richard just asked, what's the most enjoyable part of the role? And without a doubt, it's connecting with people across the church. I do still pinch myself and sort of wonder how it is that I have this privilege of being able to go to these incredible places. I mean, some of them are, ordinary in some ways, but it's just such a gift to connect with the church all across this country and in other places. I call it a wild and wonderful adventure. And it's a little bit on the exhausting side too. There's a double-edged sword to it. So Richard just asked, what's the most challenging? So I mean, there's definitely an intensity to it. And as indicative with my sailing stories, I like a little bit of control, and you don't get that in this role. So I've been, it's like God's been like training me in a variety of ways, but I often feel like I don't have enough time to prepare adequately for what I'm called into, and just have to kind of learn to go with the flow and trust that somehow the Spirit will provide what is required at the time. The other hard part is I've missed a lot of funerals of people that I love. The community gathers and mourns, and I'm not able to be there. So that's probably the hardest part of the role is not always being able to be at home or where you want to be in a moment. Jeff. Oh, good. Oh,
for your vision.
oh, thank you, Brad. Hi, Brad. What do I need for your vision? I mean, I need you to keep praying about it. Like actually pray about it. Where is God leading us? And to and then to have the courage, the hard feet to say yes, as well as the courage to say no. I didn't this morning in that my if you were listening this morning about the yes and saying yes also means saying no, right? Like I have the gift of naivete, which is like, oh, that's a great idea, let's do that. But you can't say yes to like everything that everybody wants you to do, or that everybody. We have to say yes to where the spirit is moving, which means maybe saying no or saying goodbye or saying, this chapter is over here, which is really hard. So courage to, so pray, discern, courage to say yes, and the courage to say no to this is, it was a season, but it's now time to lay this down because we can't juggle every ball in the air. And we have a tendency to do that, I think. And at least my church does. It's like tries to do everything. And then we're thin instead of deep in what we're called to do. I would love to see some experimenting in the region. I would love to see holding up and somehow supporting experimental ministries, because sometimes you have to throw things at a wall to see if they'll stick. And again, not willy-nilly, but like at a gut nudge sense of, I wonder if we're being called into to this. I would love to see again, following on what I was chatting about this morning around culture shifts, many of our migrant churches need places to worship. Our migrant churches are growing, some of them faster than they can keep up, and they don't have the space in which to meet. They don't have the supports. And one of the visions that I have for the church that came to me while I was elected in Alberta, and after the general council, we went west to visit my son in Nelson, BC, and there are these, we visited like an old growth forest, and there are these enormous trees, but there are also these enormous stumps, like huge stumps. And growing out of the stump is a little tree that required that old, like, it's not dead. Do you know what I mean? Like, the one tree is gone, but there's something new growing out of it. And they're called, I've learned, nurse stumps. And I think a lot of our congregations need to accept the gift of being a nurse stump, of saying, what we were is perhaps had its season, but we can provide infrastructure, building space, maybe financial support for the new thing that God is doing in our midst. So I don't know if that's I don't know your region well enough to know if that's, something that's happening. But as we seek to be a church that is multi-generational, multiracial, and intercultural, that's I'm hoping that as a region, you will find ways to support some of this bold vision for the church, which isn't my vision, it's the vision. Robert.
Along with the migration of the national office.
Oh, are there any interesting? There probably are. I'm not as I don't get to be privy to. So the national office, as you just may know, we are out of the 3250 Bloor Street West. We vacated that office at the end of December, and we are hanging out. We are hanging out with the Presbyterians up in North York, which is a joy of a commute. It takes a bit of it's like the polar opposite end of the city. So we're hanging out with the Presbyterians, which is going well. And then we are building at 300 Bloor Street, although I think we're changing the address to something Huron Street. It's on a corner. And I think the main address will be Huron from what I'm hearing. And you probably know that the Anglicans have pulled out of that agreement. And so that meant it changes the build, it changes the footprint and what you're doing, which of course delays the build a little bit. But it's coming along. I think their hope is for us to be in the new office by the first quarter, that lies in sort of sometime next winter. To be in the new office. And I think that'll be an exciting, it's a smaller, like the space that the United Church of Canada will be smaller than where we currently were, with knowledge that not everybody can work in the building at the same time. But that's okay, because that's kind of how we work now anyway, with different units that will come in and meet and work, and others are working sort of remotely. Way at the back, and I can't see your name tag, and I can't remember your name. Oh, I missed that. Yeah, good question. So, and I missed the name. I will. Sorry, what's Lynn? Is it Lynn? Yeah. So Lynn asked if, when I became moderator, how it worked with kind of leaving a church, and do I go back to the same church? Because I've been talking about my church. I am technically on leave from my congregation. So that was a big sort of slight panic moment when I became moderator. I mean, there was a plan A and a plan B. Plan A, I stay, plan B, we'll see, was the motto we were going with at the church. And we did start to have a pulpit supply plan in place at the church. But I really thought, like, I remember when the names came out at the end of January, and my name wasn't up yet because my region hadn't nominated me yet. And I saw the list of candidates, and I just burst out laughing because I was like, oh, thank goodness I don't have to be moderator because clearly there are all these like published authors, and I just laughed and laughed. And I was like, God, I don't know why you've called me to let my name stand, but it's probably just to meet somebody on the journey. Anyway, so there was a definite, even though there was a preparing for, there was also an element of surprise when I became moderator. So the panic was like, initially it was like, oh my goodness, do I need to leave my church? And fortunately, I mean, some of this is uncharted territory. There's only been 45 of us, and every situation is slightly unique. And had a wise pastoral minister, Whit Strong. Some of you might know this, and he's like, "You don't have to make this decision right now. You can go on leave from your." And so that is technically where I'm at. You can help pray with me for me as to whether I return to Wall Street. It's I've chatted with a few past moderators, and again, every situation is different. It's not easy to return after 3 years. That they'll have changed, I'll have changed, and so you kind of come back, and that can be a little bit challenging. Like everything will have changed, and yet they're still arguing about whether people can put flowers on the communion table, and what, like it's there's a certain grace on both sides. I would have to I would have to enter in almost like a new ministry, I think. So I am discerning that one, and God hasn't, there's no clarity on that for me yet, and I'm just learning to just at some point God will give clarity on that one. But yes, I can return if they and I and God agree that that's what we should do.
Where do you see church camps and their support coming from in the future?
Good question. Hi, Henry. Where do you see church camps coming from in the future? I think is base support for in the future. Like many of you, certainly a lot of my formation came, a lot of my growing up, I spent quality time in church camps. My first camp was Ryerson Beach Camp. It was also the first place that I had a job as a camp counselor. And then we moved east, and I ended up at Rideau Hill Camp, and then somehow got sucked in with the Presbyterians, and ended up as a lifeguard up at Gracefield Presbyterian Camp. And that's where my family kind of stayed connected. It's an incredible place. Just like the church, that's a hard question to answer. I know that things are shifting with camps. Parents don't love sending kids out away anymore for overnight camp. Maybe that'll come back. But there's a certain amount of understandable fear around, like, day camps seem to be the thing with a lot of parents now, as opposed to sort of letting random teenagers look after your kids for a week. But maybe that'll shift with the whole kind of like unplug culture. I don't know. What's the solution in terms of supporting partnership? I don't know. I know, like at Gracefield, they're looking at partnership with like an outside organization that might take over part of the camp and, run a profitable type thing so that they can continue their main ministry of being camp. But it's probably the same question that I think we always have to ask the kind of the root question of, instead of maybe holding on to the institution, whether it's your church or a camp or something else, but it's like, this was a way that we reached young people, and that so many ministers came out of the camp system. So it's like, God, how do we do that today? How do we reach kids and teenagers today? Is this, and if it is camp, how do we do that? How do we make that work? Because a lot of, camps can't afford to pay decent wages, or And it's expensive to send your kids to camp. I don't know what the cost is at a United, because again, I've been more connected, but it's, you know, $500, $400 to send your kid to camp for a week. People don't have that kind of money anymore, right? Especially if you've got a more than one kid. So I'm afraid I don't have the answer, Henry, but let's keep asking the question of God, how do we reach out to kids and youth and, you know, connect them with the environment, disconnect them to their devices, gather them around campfires. And one of the things that I noticed, and if there's a whole pile of other questions, you can stop me. But when it comes to youth, youth are craving what the church has to offer. But I'll tell you what they're craving. They're craving an encounter with the holy, which camp offered. Because you're just in this environment, right? You're in nature, around the campfire, singing. There's just this encounter with the holy that happens. And our Catholic and Anglican siblings do a good job of connecting people to the awe and the mystery and the holy with their liturgy. And our evangelical siblings also do a good job of connecting youth to the holy, right? Praise, like a half an hour of praise music. In the United Church, we're not as good at that. We tend to aim to the head instead of to an experience of faith, a way of encountering. And we need to learn how to do that. How do we connect these youth to the holy in their midst? So that's the first thing. The second thing they crave is a place that will match their values, where they can do something to make a difference. We shine there, marching in pride parades, feeding hungry, lonely people, you know, calling out governments. That's also, there was in Brockville, we did a peace walk through the market, connected to the Middle East, connected to Israel, Palestine. And there was a youth who was in a neighboring town, like 25-ish minutes away, and she was getting her coffee at the local coffee shop. And in front of her, she heard a couple talking about how they were going to a peace walk in Brockville at the United Church. And so she was like, can I come? And she joined. Like, they want to do something to make a difference. So finding ways, again, to connect youth to making a difference in the world. And we shine in that area. So keep doing that. Any other questions, Jeff? Or anybody here? Oh, okay. And there's one at the back. Oh, wow. I can answer that one. So Brad asked, can you describe the process for selecting the next general secretary? I know that one too well because I get to chair the selection committee. And so that is underway. The selection committee has been named through a nomination process, and it's a great bunch of people. And we hired a search firm to help out with the search, which is LH Knightsbridge. They were the same. Well, I didn't choose them, but the church explored a couple different search firms, and that's the one that was used the last time around as well. So they have a knowledge of who we are as the church. And so we were helped at the last, leading up to the last general council. A big review was done of the office of the moderator and the general secretary, and that has helped us to speed up the search, because a lot of that work of what is this role, you tend to revisit every time you have a new job. So that work is there. We know the vision and direction of the church, and it's now finding the right position, the right person for the position. So it's up. The job opportunity has been posted. I think technically it's the end of this month. That is which is like what, today? Tomorrow? Tuesday. So if you're thinking about it, Or if you know somebody that you want to tap on the shoulder, do that soon. I say technically because anyway, we need the right person. So after that, we've got interview dates set. So I don't know who's applied yet. At the end of somewhere in July, there's a meeting, and the search firm will bring us. They will weed out the people who tell us how fast they can type. General secretary, literally, it happened. People will put in how many words they can type per minute. So they'll weed out candidates that aren't, appropriate for the role and bring us candidates for us to consider. And there will be an in-person interview process at the end of August. We're not in any giant hurry to bring in to have Michael head out, but if a clergy member ends up being called to the position, they typically need to give 90 days notice. And so we would like to have the new person named and approved for the November executive of the General Council. That's our hope. So likely starting January-ish, a little bit of ish, depending on who comes in, and probably a bit of overlap with the current General Secretary, again, depending on if there's somebody who is sort of really inside and knows the role, or is somebody kind of out from a little bit left field and has a steep learning curve. There's a question at the back. David. So David, yes. Stephen. Okay, hi, Stephen. Stephen's asking, having been in the role of the moderator for a year or almost a year, how will that impact my career in the future? I have no idea. You tell me. Honestly, I think I have no idea. No idea. I don't know. Maybe there'll be grandchildren in my future. I can't wait for there are none on the horizon. None. I've got 4 kids, 28, 24. My number 3 just had a birthday yesterday. She turned 20. Yeah. And then a 16-year-old. Nothing. Oh. Oh my. Oh my gosh, that's like the hardest question of all. So what is your name? Marianne wants to know what book I should write at the end of this, or what it is I need to share. Oh, your question's gonna like sit with me. I've got a bad feeling. Um, I don't think of myself as a writer. Carmen's an amazing writer. I don't know. You're making me worry that was a oh. I think if I was going to write something, it would relate to, I did a doctorate of ministry, and it was a preaching doctorate. But preaching or a doctorate of ministry has to be a contextual, instead of like a PhD is you're looking at a subject. But when you're doing a doctorate of ministry, it's within your context of being a minister. And so for me, what I wanted to explore, as I've talked about, was this relationship with the recovery community in my church. And what I noticed in that recovery community was a journey to transformation that worked. It didn't work for everyone. AA doesn't work for everyone. But I, and as a congregation, saw with our own eyes people who went from being, I'll use the term hopeless cases, where you thought like there was just no hope for this person, to being people who are functioning and healthy and, I mean, still characters like we all are, but like miracle transformations that happened through these 12 steps and through stepping into AA meetings and attending, and I'd like to think partly the church community. And I wanted to understand that better, that transformation, and see if I could use that for in my preaching and for the church. So my doctoral dissertation, I took the 12 steps and narrowed them down to 3. What I saw in the 12 steps was awareness, reparation, and renewal, which is what I offered today. And so I started with my preaching. That's a framework that I use in my preaching. There's a little bit of an intro, but then it's like, what's the problem? What do we need to be aware of? What are the small steps that we can do to change? And where's God at work? Where's the renewal? So the title was Aware, Repair, Renew, Preaching Transformation into the Mainline Church. So that topic of transformation, it can happen, and it happens through being courageously aware of the challenges, not turning away from them. You know, come to realize that my life has become unmanageable, which it sure has as moderator. But awareness of God, a power greater than ourselves. And like the 12 steps have these like micro steps, they're like, I'm losing them in my head, but you make a list of people whom you have harmed. It's like you just made a list. That's all you've done. Okay, now you got to share it with someone. Like these micro steps, and then so there's just the power that can happen in transformation when you become aware of yourself, but also aware of the world and are willing to step out in small ways to make a difference. And you can see God in that mix. So that's probably it, but I might just keep talking instead of writing. But thank you what's your name again? Mary Ann. Okay, I'll blame you in the future. Thank you. Okay, deal. I think I saw a hand.
From saying my friend retreat, and if I told you my region, you know that. We're all in the same region. I'm Doug from Lambeth, and I loved your point this morning about the story of Easter and how people want to know because they don't know. Like 20 years ago, they would have asked that. I think because I think there would have been this. Don't try to convert us to preacher. Like that's the way I interpret it. And growing up in Generation X, there was this vibe that my peers thought that what I was into was this non-consensual pushy thing. And you're encouraged to go and preach. And there's this new kind of willingness to hear the preach, where I don't think I'm as apt to feel like I'm doing this non-consensual pushy thing anymore. Like I think I've been holding back all my life because I think we've been made to feel as Christians like don't push this on, don't impress me, don't. And can you speak to how we give ourselves permission to do this consensually?
So sorry for those online. We really should have given Doug a microphone. Doug was asking about the idea of go preach and the story I talked about with Zoomer Radio and how they asked the story and how that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. And he talked about permission to go preach, permission to tell the story in a consensual way, which I think is kind of funny to think about it that way. I just think things have changed. And, because literally they don't know the story. Ross Lockhart, who some of you maybe know was a United Church minister, is now Presbyterian minister. He told a great story of going to a church in somewhere in BC for a dance recital or probably music recital. And he was there, again, it was Holy Week at this dance recital, and waiting for it to happen, he was eavesdropping on the family behind him. And the family behind him, had like two generations, sort of grandparents, parents, and then their kid was in the performance. And the dad, boomer dad, said, "Oh, I can't believe lightning didn't strike when I came into this place." They were meeting in a church, and the wife, laughed and said, "No kidding, it might still happen." And their daughter said, I remember that we used to go to church once in a while, like at Christmas or these kinds of things, And they said, "Well, yeah, but that's been a long time since we've done that." And then the Gen, maybe millennial parent said, "My daughter," she probably gave the name, "my daughter, when she came in here, said, 'What is this place? What do they do in this place?'" And she said, "I didn't know how to answer the question, and I felt ashamed." And at the beginning of the event, they gave a land acknowledgement, as is appropriate and as they should. And as Ross says, no mention was made that they were also meeting in this sacred place of worship. So I think when it comes to the boomer generation, they, were forced to go to church, and there's a certain amount of don't push this on me. But you go down the generations to millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha now. Like my kids' friends, they don't know. Like there's no knowledge of what the story is. And I mean, my hang up sometimes was like, this is such a weird story, like Jesus, dying on a cross, comes back to life, and there's, water to wine. And, this is such a weird story. It is so not weird anymore. Because there's a whole lot more weirder out there than our Christian story, that people are, oh my gosh, the weirdness out there that people are getting into to find, meaning and purpose is wild. So I think the permission comes in authenticity is what people are craving, right? And so I don't think although you still get people on Parliament Hill literally standing on, egg cartons, or, the plastic ones, not the, with a megaphone, kind of preaching kind of a fire and brimstone that I don't think resonates with too many people. What does resonate is sharing your story, right? Nobody can argue with your story as it relates to the gospel. There's so many opportunities. I mean, I travel on the train, and one of the last times I was on the train, I think a guy must have noticed my Pride bracelet. It's the only explanation I can have, because he started talking about Toronto Pride. And then from there, conversation happened. And, it's hard sometimes. I don't volunteer it, but, eventually somehow in the conversation, they want to know why you're going to Toronto, what you do. And so it comes around to, well, I'm clergy, or where do you serve? Well, actually, I'm the moderator. What's a moderator? Well, have you heard of the Pope? It's a really little Pope. Anyway, but then that, you get into Faith's story, right? He's like, wow, I'm going to, and he was from Brockville. I'm going to, I'm going to check out the church. So it's listening for those opportunities, but then having the courage to share. I don't think people find it pushy anymore. I don't think that's our problem. Our problem is not that we're pushy. We're not creative and, daring enough when it comes to sharing our faith. Any other online, or I don't know how long this lasts. You get to go home after this, don't you? No. Well, I think that's probably a good place to, it's been a blessing. Can I say a prayer for you and you online? Gracious God, thank you for this gathering. Thank you for this people here in Antler River Watershed, and we send special blessings on Horseshoe Falls as they continue their meeting on the other side of the room. Open our hearts and our eyes to see where you are moving, O God. Give us the courage to do hard things, to share our faith in simple ways with people around us, to see new things and invest in those new things, even if it feels risky. Help us through the chaos, we pray. Help us to embrace what you are up to. God, we need healing in this country and this world. We pray your peace, especially in the Middle East as bombs are falling again. In Venezuela, where they are rebuilding. Oh God, be near. Help us to answer your call as individuals, as communities of faith, as a denomination, to make a difference where you lead us, to bring justice, healing, life, and goodness. Transform us, we pray, by your grace. Fill us with your life by the power of your Spirit. God bless each and every one of you. Amen.
Thank you so much, Right Reverend Dr. Kimberly Heath. And as a little pope, does that make you a little infallible? I don't know. Anyway, but thank you for raising our awareness. I think that first step and working towards reparation. How do we move forward? So thank you so much for those words and your presence all weekend. We really appreciate it. We covenant with groups of people or with people to show support, to become part of that rope, to become part of that braid and so on. So at this point in time, I would invite those that have put their names forward. Actually, I'll ask all members of commissions, those newly placed on the slate and our new president-elect. I would ask that you stand. And those of you the rest of us, we are going to respond as follows. Members of the executive of the Congregational Support, Pastoral Relations, and Disciple and Justice, please stand, which you are. Thank you. I should have read that again. Do you take up the responsibility and privileges of leadership in our Antler River Watershed Regional Council, committed to deepening of our commitment to Jesus and to embody God's love in the world as we connect, support, and transfer the communities of faith within our boundaries? If so, please say, we do, God being our helper.
We do, God being our helper.
And I ask all regional council members gathered here in person and on Zoom, friends, do you commit yourself to uphold these leaders in prayer, engage with them with respect, trust their intentions, and seek their counsel? If so, please say, we do, God being our helper. You may be seated. And may God give us strength to fulfill the promises we have made this day. Thank you so much. And at this point, I'm going to invite Carrie Stover, our chair of business, to an agenda to read our final motions and closing motion. And yes, thank you. I could do that. I had my list of thank yous from earlier, and I'll add to it now. So again, Thanks to Carrie for being chair of business. I certainly appreciate that. Louise Hall, again, for acting as recording secretary here during our breakout sessions. Brad Morrison, who's online. And Charmaine and Greg, who are here, I think, somewhere. And John and Michelle online, and Pat Morrison as well. And Carlene, yes, Carlene's also here in helping out. So, and again, my apologies if I've missed somebody else. But again, thank you for your worship leading, Greg. We certainly appreciate that. And thank you for all your participation. As I say, we are a region, and to be part of that braid, each of you are contributing and are a strand in that. So thank you so much. And I'll turn it over now to Carrie, I think.
You're right. Right. Our last piece of business is the closing motion, which is on page 33 of your workbook, if you still have that open. Yes. I was going to do that after people got to their workbook. So I have that next. Louise, thank you, Louise, for reminding me to thank Richard. We give you thanks for your leadership in this meeting, as well as the bi-regional meeting came to order. I was so pleased to see you and Sula there, but especially with you as our president. We give thanks to God for your leadership, not only this day, in all days in our region. And again, our thanks to the Right Reverend Kimberly Heath, who joined us. We appreciate her being with us for these meetings. You know, one thing that's come through as we've braided things together, we've heard about the potter forming the clay and so forth. And usually the chair of agenda and business doesn't get too much into theology, do we? We just want to move the business along so we can go home, right? Because all that's standing between you and those doors is me. Because I'm over here. But in all the messages that we heard from Kimberly and also for Lillian, that connectedness that brings us together. And Richard emphasized that as well. As I look around the room, new people that I've connected with, and even with Horseshoe Falls, because I did serve in Horseshoe Falls for a short period of time, and Shining Waters, they're not here, but I still, that connectedness that we have for the mission of this denomination. And so when we think about that, what came to me yesterday, I was listening to Lillian Daniel, if you were listening to her, was a song that comes from the wonderful music of, I think it's ragtime. Go out and tell our story. Let it echo far and wide. Make them hear you. Make them hear you. That's what we've been doing. And so that we can go out and tell our story. Make them hear you. Maybe not from the soapbox, and maybe not from the pulpit, but in the communities we serve in Jesus' name. And now, I'm going to move the closing motion. So what is the issue? The work of the Regional Council continues between Regional Council meetings. Why is this issue important? Well, the Regional Council must be clear on how the work will continue until we meet again. And so what might the Regional Council do? The Regional Council might entrust all unfinished business from this meeting from June 26th to the 28th, 2026, as we send that to the executive. We authorize the executive to fill any vacancies on the understanding that the appointments will be confirmed at the next spring regional council meeting. We will direct the executive to plan to convene a meeting of the regional council in the fall of 2026. We'll entrust the executive and commissions with the responsibilities and the authority of Antler River Watershed Regional Council in accordance with the Manual of the United Church of Canada and the Governance Handbook of the Western Ontario. No, it's not Western Ontario Waterways. It's the Antler River Watershed Regional Council. And we will close this meeting of June 26th to 28th, this meeting of the Antler Rivershed Regional Council. So I therefore move this proposal. Cheryl Bolton looks like she's the seconder on that. And that ends the meeting.
And we are adjourned. Enjoy the soccer game this afternoon. Go Canada.
Thank you. Like